Hi, I'm Jay Beaton. I'm a Drupal developer with my own company, and I'm going to be talking about Features and Drush and using them to build a professional no-touch workflow. So I'm going to talk about what features are and what's Drush. I'm going to create a feature that includes a content type, a view, and some settings. I'm going to talk about how to get that feature to a different server, like your production server, and how to update that feature once it's in place. I'm also going to talk about some tricks for working with features and then some potential issues associated with features. So, how many people out there are the only developer working on a site? And how many people make changes to content types and settings on a live server? And that's bad. You really shouldn't do that. A professional organization shouldn't be doing pointy-clicky to update production. So, how do you make changes in production? Features. So first, what are features? Well, normally Drupal stores all information about content types and views, settings, most everything in the database. This makes it difficult to share these things among developers or across servers. And features are a way of taking this information and storing in code instead. This way you can then move these features around like any other code, and you can share them with other developers working on the same project. So what's Drush? Drush is a command line tool for administering and working with the Drupal site. So why would you use features? Well, if there's more than one person working on a site, features will really help. And also when you have multiple servers like development stage and production. But really, I think anytime you have a Drupal website, that's a use case for features. So for my demo, I'm going to have two sites. I'm going to have a dev site and a production site. And the dev site will be in blue, and the production site is in red. And to start with, they're going to be the same. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to add a new content type with a view and add some settings on the dev site. And because this is the internet, and internet likes kittens, and we just got 3 new kittens here at our house, we're going to add a kitten content type. So I'm going to go ahead and create the content type, and I'm not going to go through all the steps because we're not really talking about that, but here we're creating the content type, and so here's with some fields like a bio and an image. And then we're also going to create a view that's going to show a list of kittens. And this view has a page and a block. So now we have our new content type with a view, but how do we get this to our production site? And the answer is features. So first, in order to actually work with features, we need to make sure it's enabled. And so if we go to our modules page, we can check on it and see features, and there it is. So features are enabled, and we're also going to want to make sure we have the strong arm module enabled, because that allows us to save some Drupal settings variables. Alright, so now that we have those modules enabled, we're going to go ahead and create a feature. And we're going to use the UI to do it. So here you enter some basic information about the feature. It's name, and so first we enter the name, and then we enter a machine name for it, and I like to prefix the machine name for my content type features with CT underscore. We can add a description, as well as a version, and then the good stuff. And now we start figuring out what we want in our feature. So we want to add the content type, and features is smart enough to know what things are associated with that, so it picks them for us. And then we're going to add our view as well. And then we're going to download it. And this is going to download it right to our system. Now, we still need to take this feature and actually put it in the right place in our system. And so I've kind of done this already, and I've put it in Sites, All, Modules, Features, and you can see it here. And now, even though the module's in place, it's not enabled. So there's a few ways you can do it. We can go to the Features page, and we can check that box next to it, and we can save the settings. Or a feature is just a module, and so we could go to the Modules page and turn it on there, enable it there. Or since we're talking about Drush, you can do it with Drush, and so we're going to do that. So we do Drush en for enable kitten, and we confirm yes, we do want to enable it, and now it's enabled. And so that was our first Drush command for Drush en. The module name, it just enables a module. Alright, so now the feature is enabled, and you can see it's checked there. And we can also use Drush feature list, FL, to see a list of features on the site and their current status. And so there's our kitten feature. And there's our next Drupal command, or Drush command that we talked about, and that's Drush FL, which lists all features and shows their current state. Alright, now I'm using Git to move code around, and I'm not going to go into any detail on that, but you could use any version control system, and you are using a version control system, right? So we've committed our code, we've pushed it. Now we're going to our production server, and we're going to pull our code, and we're going to grab the feature code that we just added, and then, now that we have the code, we're going to go ahead and enable it. And then once it's enabled, we will run drush cc all, which will flush caches. And then we're going to run drush fl to see what state our features are in. And all is well. There's our kitten feature, and it is enabled. So drush cc all is a new command there, and that flushes all caches. And it's always good to flush the cache before you check the status of features. Sometimes it'll clear up any differences and enable your changes. So it's a good thing to do. Alright, so here's the production site. And we can take a look, and we can see that it has our new content type. So there it is, the new kitten. And we can see it has our view as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some content. Here, it's going to magically appear there. And so here's our list of kittens. And yes, these are all actual cats that we have at our house. And so here they are with the images and the fields that we added initially. And yes, we do have 5 cats. Alright, now let's say we're going to make some changes. And of course, we're going to do that on our dev server. And what we want to do is we want to add a color field, add an email field, because our cats are always connected, and then add an image to our teaser. And adding an email field, we're going to use the email contrib module, so we need that as well. And we're going to use drush DL, our download, to download the module. And it knows where to put the module. In this case, sites all modules contrib. And then now we're going to enable it. And now the email module is enabled. And so there's a new Drush command, the Drush DL, and that downloads a module from the Drupal site. And I've gone ahead and made the required changes to the content type. You can see the new fields are in place. This is on the dev server. And in the teaser display, you can see that the image is now included. And now if we run feature list, we're going to check the status of our features. And now our kitten is overridden. Overridden. So overridden just means that the feature as defined in code doesn't match the feature stored in the database. So let's take a look. And we can use the feature diff to see the differences. And so here we can see just what we'd expect. The new fields are added, there's dependency on email, and the teaser's been changed. And the coloring, the green shows what's in the database that's different, and the red shows what's in code. And so feature diff is the new Drush command that we just did, and it shows the differences between the feature as defined in code and the database. So now we're overridden. We're stuck. Now what? How do we resolve this? Well, we want to update the code for the feature, so we're going to just run drush feature update. This re-exports the feature into code with all of our changes. So now we have the drush fu module name command, and it updates the feature code to match what's in the database. Now we can move our code with these changes over to production, but there's a problem. In production, we don't have the email module installed and enabled. Now Git will allow us to get it on the production server, but it still won't be enabled. Now we could enable the module manually in production, but there's a better way. We can write a hook update function to turn the module on for us, and that's what this does. It just uses the module enable function and enables the email module. So we just need to add a .install file to our module. In this case, it would be called ctkitten.install, and add our function to it. Now, on our dev server, the email module is already enabled, but we'll run the update anyway, just to make sure we don't have any errors. On a real site, you probably would want to start with a fresh copy of the production database and go through the actual update process in full. And to do the update, we run drush updb, and note that the comment that we added in the doc block of the function is shown here. So make sure to add one and make it informative. So now we're done, and email is enabled. Or, well, it was anyway, but now it would be. And so here's another drush command, drush updb. This runs any outstanding Drupal update scripts, and it's the same as what you would do with the update PHP page. So now we are going to commit to Git and push it so we can get our code over to production, where we're going to do a pull to get the code. And so we got all of our changes, and now we're going to run drush updb to run any updates, enable email in this case. And we're going to flush the cache. And we're going to check the status of our feature using FL, feature list. And all is well. And so we'll go ahead and look at the site and see that if our fields are there. Actually, first let's run FD and check our feature is in its default state. And then we'll look at the site and see that all our fields are there. So here we are on the production server. Kitten content type. There's our new fields. And here's the display of the teaser. We can see the image is there. So we're all updated. And here's our list of kittens with images. And that's the basics of using features to keep multiple servers up to date. And now I'm going to talk about a few other cool things that you can do with Drush and features. Alright, back on the dev server, let's say you want to change the paths for all your kitten nodes. Right now we're using the default. And so we're going to change it via the UI and save it. And now we want to add this setting to our feature. And we could use the UI to recreate the feature and find the particular variable that we want here. We could just check it, and here it is. In this case, it's the path auto node kitten pattern. And we could download our feature again and replace our existing feature code, but there's an easier way. And that is by editing the .info file. And so this is what a .info file looks like for a feature. And you can see that it has information about the feature, it has dependencies, and it has all the different components that make up the feature. And we can edit it manually to add new components if we want. And so to change the alias pattern, that's the variable path auto node kitten. And so we're going to go ahead and edit our .info file. And there's the variables section right there, all the other variables associated with this. And then we're going to add our new line. And it really doesn't matter where we put it, because features is going to clean it up afterwards. So we add our line, and then we run feature update. Say yes, we do. And that's it. It updates the appropriate files for us, and we can do diff and see what exactly it did. And so there's the new line added to the .info file, and then it added a little section to the strongarm file, and you can see there's the settings that we just exported. So now we commit these changes to Git, and then we grab them on the production server by doing our pull. And we're going to flush our caches and list our features to see what our status looks like. And this time our kitten feature is in the state needs review, and that's it's similar to overridden, and we're going to go ahead and run feature revert and revert Because before we ran feature update to take the feature in the database and save it to code. This time, though, we want to do the opposite. We want to revert the feature in the database to what's in code. And so now we can update all of the URL aliases on the site. And you can see we have our new pattern. Now, yes, it would have been better if we had written a hook update script to do the update of the URL aliases, so that we can really be no touch. So there was a new Drush command for us, FR for feature revert, and that reverts the feature to match what's in code. It throws out what's in the database. So, even more Drush commands. So we're going to talk a little bit about the working with the database, because what we're going to do is we're going to take a database snapshot from production and add it to our repository so we can get all of our live content back on our dev server for better testing. And Drush has commands for that too. There are two commands that we'll talk about. Drush SQL dump, and it dumps the entire database to a file. And then there's Drush SQL queue, which executes a specified SQL file. And so we're going to go ahead and do that on production. We're going to dump the database. And then we're going to go ahead and add it to our Git repository and push it. And then we're going to hop over to our development server. And we're going to pull down the changes. And then we're going to replace the database there with the one we just got from production. So now we have production's database. And so if we go over to the dev server, there's our content, but we're missing images. Where are our kittens? So if you have missing images and files on your development or staging server, so what can you do? There's a couple options. You can make a tarball. You can copy it to the dev server and untar it there. Or you can use some fancy Apache tricks to use your production images or files. And there was a good article on Lullabot a couple months ago that showed exactly how to do this. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to edit an htaccess file. And I like to avoid editing the root htaccess file because it's usually in Git and it's part of Drupal core. And I'd rather not have to track changes to it. So I'd either edit the Apache configuration file directly or edit the site's default files htaccess file. And the example here is for editing that one, the htaccess in site's default files. And the code in the Lullabot article would be for editing the Apache conf file or the root htaccess file. So we're going to go ahead and edit that htaccess file. We're going to add that block of code. There it is with the rewrites. And now we're going to reload. Yay, kittens! So there, now we're grabbing those images from the live server. Alright, what are some of the issues that you can have with features? Well, one that I've come across is with field groups. I had some issues with the newest version of features not exporting field groups correctly. And it would export kind of a blank in place of field groups, and so it would cause problems when you moved them to other servers. Now, another thing you need to be careful of is when you're working with multiple developers is the order in which you do things. If you're going to do a pull, you need to make sure that your changes are in code, because you don't want to pull somebody else's changes and then have to do a feature revert and blow away any of your changes. So you just need to be aware of that. when you're doing things like enabling new modules especially, you want to make sure you run drush updb first, so that those can be enabled before you do anything with features, because sometimes you'll get database errors associated with permissions because it tries to insert something, insert a row into the permissions table, but it doesn't have the module yet. Now, features doesn't handle blocks. You can't export blocks into a feature. You could kind of get around this by using the context model for placement, which works well, and that is exportable. And if it's just kind of custom content, like that you put in a WYSIWYG editor, you can use the boxes module. That works well, and those are exportable too. Now, you can export content, actual nodes, along with menus and taxonomies, but I'm not sure if it's really a good idea to do that. Content I think is particularly a bad idea if it's ever going to change, because you're going to end up with your feature being reverted. Menus and taxonomies you might want to export the definition of it, along with maybe any fields that you added, but the actual values, you probably don't want to export those. You can, using something like UUID, but it may not be a good idea. You need to really think about it. Now, one last thing. One of the first things that I always like to do when I'm starting a Drupal project is to create a system feature, something like try.demo_system, to hold all the basic system settings for a project. And this ends up being a place where you can add things like your hook form alters or any preprocess functions. It can be what a lot of people call a glue module. And you could create that feature just like any other feature, where you put in the normal information, and then you can select your various variables like front page and mail and site name, along with your text formats, filtered in full, HTML, and your WYSIWYG profiles. Well, that's a presentation about Drush and features. And that's it. Again, my name is Jay Beaton, and I'm a Drupal developer and with my own Drupal consulting company. Until next time.